A bear saved him from drowning. The truth was stranger than anyone imagined. The river had always been a source of life for the mountain town, its rushing waters feeding crops, turning old mills, and providing a constant hum in the background of daily life. But on stormy nights, it turned into something else entirely, a monster. Ethan had grown up hearing warnings from his father never to wander too close when the rain swelled the banks. Yet that evening, with the storm clawing at the sky, he found himself walking along the slick path near the water. His thoughts were heavy, clouded by grief after losing his father only weeks earlier. The roar of the current seemed to echo the turmoil inside him. The ground gave way before he realized what was happening. His foot slipped on the mud, and in an instant, he plunged into the icy torrent. The shock of the water stole his breath. He flailed wildly, the current dragging him under, then hurling him against jagged rocks. Panic set in as he gasped for air, his cries swallowed by the storm. He thought of his father's voice, warning him, urging him to stay safe. But now, all he could see was darkness, water rushing above him, lungs burning with desperation. Just when he believed it was over, something powerful seized him. Not hands. Claws. Through the blur of water and terror, Ethan felt himself yanked upward with impossible strength. He broke the surface, coughing and choking, dragged toward the muddy bank. With one final heave, he was thrown onto solid ground. Shaking, his vision cleared just enough to see a towering figure above him, massive, fur-soaked, eyes burning amber in the storm's flashes of lightning. A bear. For one heart-stopping moment, man and beast locked eyes in the rain. Then the creature stepped back, chest rising and falling, as though guarding him from the raging river. Ethan's mind reeled. He hadn't been saved by luck, nor by another human. He had been saved by a bear. Ethan lay on the muddy riverbank, his body trembling from shock and the freezing water. His chest heaved as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. Every instinct told him to run, to escape the predator looming only a few feet away. Yet his legs refused to move. The bear stood still, its massive frame outlined by flashes of lightning. Water dripped from its thick coat, steam rising faintly from its body in the cold night air. Its eyes, fierce yet strangely calm, remained fixed on him. Ethan's heart pounded. He knew stories of bears attacking livestock, even tearing men apart in the forest. But this one hadn't harmed him. On the contrary, it had saved him. When Ethan tried to push himself up, pain shot through his ribs. He winced, stumbling, but the bear only shifted slightly, as though to steady him. The surrealness of it all left him dizzy. He couldn't explain it, couldn't even begin to. Moments later, the storm's rage softened into steady rain. The bear gave a low rumble, not threatening but deep resonant, almost reassuring. Then, with a heavy turn, it walked back toward the trees. At the edge of the forest, it paused once, glancing over its shoulder before vanishing into the dark. Ethan collapsed back to the ground, breathless, staring at the place where the beast had disappeared. His rational mind screamed at him, "This can't be real. No wild bear drags a drowning man to safety." It was impossible. Yet the mud on his clothes, the bruises on his body, and the memory of claws gripping his arm were undeniable proof. That night, Ethan stumbled back home with a secret, one he wasn't sure anyone would believe. He hadn't just survived the river. He had been rescued, by the very creature he was taught to fear. By morning, Ethan's body ached as though he had been crushed beneath the river itself. His arm was scratched where the claws had gripped him, though strangely, the marks were shallow, more like a careful grasp than a wound. When he finally dragged himself into town, the people were quick to notice his battered state. The baker asked if he'd fallen, and the blacksmith shook his head in disbelief when Ethan admitted he'd nearly drowned. But when he spoke the truth of what had pulled him from the current, silence fell. "A bear," someone scoffed. "Boy, you must have hit your head on a rock," another laughed uneasily. Only the older folk didn't laugh. They exchanged glances, their eyes shadowed with something unspoken. One of them muttered under his breath, "It returns." Rumors spread quickly. Some said Ethan had seen a spirit of the forest, a guardian that took the form of a beast. Others whispered of curses, claiming no good ever came from a bear showing mercy. The tavern filled with speculation that night, but none dared say it too loudly, as though speaking of it would summon the creature. Ethan grew frustrated. He hadn't imagined it. The mud still clung to his clothes, the claw marks still burned on his skin. The bear was real, and it had saved his life. But why? Later, when the tavern emptied, one of the elders approached him quietly. The man's voice was gravelly, his eyes sharp. "You saw what few have seen," he said. "And if it spared you, there is a reason. Perhaps one tied to your blood." Before Ethan could ask, the elder walked away, leaving him with more questions than answers. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The river had nearly taken him, but something far stranger had been given in return, a mystery that tied his fate to a bear. The elder's words gnawed at Ethan's thoughts long after that night in the tavern. Tied to your blood. What could that possibly mean? His father had never spoken of such things. To Ethan, the man had been practical, stern, devoted to hard work, not one for stories about forest spirits or bonds with beasts. Yet, as the days passed, the clues piled up. He searched his father's old belongings, still untouched in the wooden chest by the hearth. Among the tools, hunting knives and weathered journals, Ethan discovered something unusual, a carved wooden figurine. It was shaped like a bear, its form simple but unmistakable. On the base was an inscription, nearly faded with age, "For the one who waits." The words sent a shiver through him. Later, while asking around town, Ethan pressed an old trapper who had known his father well. The man hesitated, then finally spoke. "Your father wasn't like the others. While most hunted bears for pelts and meat, he spared one. I saw it with my own eyes. A mother wounded near the river, long ago. He tended her, fed her, kept her alive when any other man would have left her to die. Foolish, some said. But he claimed a debt was owed." Ethan's chest tightened. Could it be possible? Could the bear that saved him have been tied somehow to that moment years before? The more he pieced it together, the more it felt less like chance and more like a promise fulfilled. Perhaps this wasn't just about survival. Perhaps it was about repaying something carried forward, a life for a life. The river had nearly claimed him, but the bear had pulled him free. And in its amber eyes, Ethan now saw not just instinct, but memory. A week later, a stranger arrived in town, a weathered traveler with a long coat, his face lined by years of wandering the mountains. He carried no goods to trade, no family to visit. Instead, he asked questions. About the river. About the boy who had nearly drowned. About the bear. It didn't take long for word to reach Ethan. Curious and cautious, he agreed to meet the man outside the tavern. The traveler's eyes were sharp, as though he knew far more than he was saying. "You saw it, didn't you?" the man asked without introduction. "The one they call the River Guardian." Ethan frowned. "I don't know what you mean. All I know is, it pulled me from the water. Saved me." The traveler nodded slowly. "Then it remembers. Just as I thought." That night, by the fire, the man told a story Ethan had never heard before. Decades ago, on a night much like his own, a wounded bear cub had been found along the riverbank. Its mother had died from a hunter's bullet, leaving the cub to drown in the rising waters. A young man, Ethan's father, had risked everything to rescue it. He nursed it, fed it, even carried it on his shoulders back into the forest when it grew strong. The bond between them had been unspoken but unbroken. The cub eventually returned to the wild, but the traveler claimed the lineage of that bear had never forgotten. Each generation, it was said, watched the river, guarding those tied to the man who once showed mercy. Ethan sat in stunned silence. The pieces fit too neatly, his father's figurine, the elder's words, the bear's rescue. It hadn't been chance. It had been legacy. The next morning, Ethan returned to the river. The storm had passed, and the water ran calmer, sunlight glinting off its surface. Yet his heart beat faster with every step. He wasn't sure if the bear would come again, or if he even wanted it to. But as he stood at the bank, the forest shifted. From between the trees, the massive form emerged, its fur golden brown in the light, its stride slow but steady. The same amber eyes locked on him. Ethan's breath caught. This time, he didn't feel fear. He felt recognition. He stepped forward cautiously, his boots sinking into the wet earth. "You knew him, didn't you?" he whispered. "My father." This wasn't about me at all. It was about him. The bear lowered its head, giving a low, resonant rumble. Ethan didn't need words to understand. This was the truth the traveler had spoken of, a debt carried not just by one bear, but through generations. His father's act of mercy had sown something timeless, trust. And that trust had saved him. The bear stood tall, then turned toward the river as if to remind him of the bond forged there decades ago. For a long moment, the two figures, man and beast, shared the silence of the wilderness. Finally, the bear stepped back into the trees, fading into the shadows. It did not look back. It didn't need to. Ethan remained at the water's edge, tears stinging his eyes. He now understood that his survival wasn't luck, nor miracle, but the living legacy of kindness. As the river rushed on, Ethan whispered, "I'll honor it, Father. I'll honor it." And with that, the truth settled deep in his heart: some debts are never forgotten. And so, by the river's edge, a debt of kindness was repaid, not in words, but in loyalty carried through generations of bears. Acts of compassion live longer than we do. A single moment of mercy can ripple through time, shaping destinies in ways we may never see. Kindness never dies, it becomes legacy.